Nice buns, soft, fluffy, and ultra-low net carbs. Discover Hero Bread, the delicious ultra-low net carb bread with incredible taste and texture. Hero Bread has 0 grams of sugar and is under 100 calories per serving. Plus, high in fiber with 5 to 10 grams of protein per serving. Available on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and at hero.co. That's HERO.co. Delicious, ultra-low net carb Hero Bread buns and tortillas. Soft and fluffy, high in fiber, and with 0 grams of sugar, up to 10 grams of protein, coming in at under 100 calories. Order today at hero.co and use the code AH10 to get 10% off your first purchase. That's AH10 at hero.co. HERO.co. Order from hero.co now and get 10% off your first purchase with promo code AH10. That's 10% off with code AH10. HERO.co.
This is
Make It Plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make It Plain.
Get woke.
Folks, we've been talking more and more about reparations, and we must. Big hearing February 17th at the House Judiciary Committee, a groundbreaking hearing, in fact. Even forced the Biden administration to say they support a study, but stopped just short of saying that he would, the White House would support legislation. And so we've got to see where that's gonna lead us and stay on top of this. So who better to talk to about this than the organization that has been leading the fight for reparations most recently and for really the most consistent and longest period of time, picking up from where Callie House and Queen Mother Moore left off. It is, we've heard this term, legacy groups and legacy organizations. This is the legacy organization when it comes to reparations. The National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, NCOBRA. They have male and female leadership, co-leadership, and so its male chair joins us here on MIP today, the national male chair, national co-chair, our dear brother Kamm Howard. Kamm, how are you, brother?
I'm good, brother Masamela. It's a pleasure, brother.
And
always a pleasure to talk to you.
And it's a pleasure to talk to you. Congratulations on the hearing. This is, I guess, the second hearing, so to speak. There was a hearing on Juneteenth of last year. But did you find this hearing on this most recent hearing to be even more significant?
I did find it more significant for a couple of reasons. One, because it's so early in this new congressional session. To be, 2 months into this congressional session and we have a hearing on this legislation. And so that's very, very important. The second thing is that it allowed us to capitalize on bringing in a new Democratic leadership into the reins of the federal government with the presidency, with the Senate, et cetera. It allowed us to give a statement, a quick, concise, clear, and cogent statement on what we intend to do and what we intend to expect from this new government.
Well, you're right, Kamm, and that's very, very important. And it was early. What's next? Now that we've had a hearing on H.R. 40, what's next? We got to try to move toward a markup, don't we?
Yeah, so the ultimate goal, Brother Masamela, is have this bill passed in the full House of Representatives and then push it over to the Senate side and make that happen and then take it to the president in that order, or we may have to shift. And many of us are thinking about shifting, but in the House side, the order is hearing, markup, which is the preparation for a judiciary vote in the Judiciary Committee, and then from that point to the full House floor for a vote. So right now we've shifted, we've had this hearing, we're getting more co-sponsors on, we want more co-sponsors, as many more as we can get on the way to the markup, on the way to the full Judiciary Committee, weighing in on this, debating it, Republicans, Democrats, offering any amendments. If there's going to be any amendments, we hope that it is approved the way it is. But after that debate, then there'll be a vote, full vote in judiciary. And then we know that we have the votes in the Democratic and the judiciary to have it passed out of judiciary and then move it to the floor.
How many co-sponsors does HR 40 have right now, Kamm?
Right now, it has 167. We ended the last congressional session with 173. Again, we're in the first 2 months, like less than 60 days within this new congressional session. We're almost up at that same number. We got a tremendous amount of boost last congressional session, right after the hearing, leading up and right after the hearing. We expect another boost in these next coming days and weeks after having this hearing. And so we'll see that we'll be at that 173 and past that 173 mark pretty soon. However, we need 218 votes. So even if we reach the same number of co-sponsors as we did last year, we still need additional votes on the floor to pass this bill. And so we're saying we have maybe a 2-week period, 3-week period before the markup. We have to intensify efforts to get as many more co-sponsors signed onto the bill as possible. And hopefully we can get 1 or 2 Republicans, but certainly we want to push for full Democratic Party support.
You feel confident that we can get more on? I mean, after all, what happened at the hearing, there was a lot of press, and there really wasn't any controversial press. There wasn't even really any negative press. I mean, there's really not anywhere else to go with this. That has a lot to do with the moment we live in. I mean, it's not the summer of 2020 anymore, but I mean, America, because of the summer of 2020, is still kind of in this moment, I guess, of racial reckoning. That helps, doesn't it?
That definitely helps. I think the fact that there was no negative press is because the opposition that was put up in the hearing, the two brothers, Herschel Walker and Brother Elder, no one is in step with their thinking because they're exceptional. They made it. Everybody else should make it. I mean, the entire society has moved away from that. The entire society is moving to the understanding that there have been structural impediments for 400 years put in place in our community to stop us from all of us being able to actualize our talents, our skills, our intellect, etc. And just because a few made it through, does not mean that the same opportunity exists for all of us. And also, the greater society is also coming to realize that a debt is owed and it must be paid in some form. And so I don't think we got any negative press, and we won't get any negative press because the arguments that the opposition presented have been defeated a long time ago.
In fact, some of what they said may actually help because it was so ridiculous. They couldn't even get any negative press on the hearing because it was too embarrassing to quote some of what they said. Let's listen to something Herschel Walker said, Kamm, and I'm going to get you to respond to it on the other side.
Reparation is only feeding you for a day. It's removing the sign of for whites only, replacing the sign for no education here. Black America is asking for a hand up, not a handout. If reparation is a fee or a correction for a terrible sin of slave owners, government, and others, but we punish the non-guilty party, is it not creating division or separation with different races? I feel it continues to let us know we're still African American rather than just American. Reparation or atonement is outside the teaching of Jesus Christ, who will not be teaching the word of God. So I speak back.
All right. Herschel Walker, what's your reaction, Kamm Howard, to what you just heard?
Yeah, there were so many things in that were totally untrue, just factually untrue. But more so than that, and those of us in NCOBRA say we've all been injured in some type of way by the system of white supremacy domination, by the trauma that we've inherited, by the miseducation we've been subjected to, by the ongoing attack on our images. So we've all been injured. And that brother really indicated, the level of injury that he's suffering from. And unfortunately, he believes that he's well. First of all, the Bible is full of examples of reparations. In fact, we just got several Jewish denominations to quote extensive passages in the Bible in support of HR 40, in support of reparations. So that's just patently untrue. I mean, it was just so much there that, just shows the brother's lack of knowledge of history and the injury that he suffers from.
And an example of segregated education. I mean, if
Yes.
anything, it makes the case of what he has missed and what he has been missing, and others
Exactly.
who think like him. And so again, I mean, that's not. In some degree, I think it helped. I mean, I heard from people who maybe have been apathetic about it. People saying, "Oh my God, I mean, this is what
Right.
this is the best that can be mustered." Let's talk a little bit about NCOBRA. Talk to our audience a little bit about the history of NCOBRA and how NCOBRA became the leading organization on reparations.
COBRA was founded in 1987 prior to the Japanese Commission bill that was formed. We had just known, the Black community had known, many of our organizations were pushing for repair in some type of way. The Nation of Islam, Marcus Garvey prior, the Black Panther Party had it in their platform in the 60s. As you know, my brother in Detroit laid out a $500 million plan in his manifesto, James Foreman. And after all those things that were taking place, or as those things were taking place, the Republic of New Africa also had a reparations plan. And one of the founders of the Republic of New Africa, Dr. Imari Obadele, stated that there needed to be an organization in this country specifically focused on just reparations. All of these organizations, Black national organizations, had it in their platform, but there was not an organ that was focused only on reparations. And so he called a meeting, the National Council of Black Lawyers, Republic of New Africa, Malcolm X movement, and others, Association of Black Social Workers, and a lot of members in the nationalist community and non-nationalist community came together in 1987 at a meeting and formed NCOBRA with the sole purpose of winning reparations for people of African descent in this country. That is all we do. We define reparations as the process of repairing, healing, and restoring our people who were injured due to our group identity in violation of our fundamental human rights by governments, corporations, institutions, and wealthy families. And so we see reparations as repair, as being made whole by this government, by those other injuring institutions and parties. And so we've been working for 34 years on this issue. We've had some of the greatest minds in America, Black America, be attached to NCOBRA, from Charles Ogletree, Adjua Yatero. The list is endless in the nationalist community, and even Dr. Ron Walters in the non-nationalist community have been members, lifetime and members of NCOBRA, leadership of NCOBRA, and we operate around the country. We have 9 commissions that do our work: legislative, litigation, education commission, a youth commission that is growing. We have some really talented youth that are coming up, and you'll be seeing more of them, who are fighting on the ground and making sure that this message reaches a new generation.
And when we talk about reparations, this commission would hear proposals and vet those proposals and bring those proposals before the public, even in public hearings, wouldn't it? And that's why there are those who are trying to make singular arguments. Well, this is my reparations proposal.
Right.
This is the only one that will work. That's kind of misplaced and premature, isn't it? Because that's what this commission would do. Obviously, there are dozens of proposals. You and I probably think of some imaginative ideas every day, several times a day. But that would be the purpose of this commission, to kind of vet that and go through a democratic process to figure out what is the best answer.
That's exactly right. We wrote and NCOBRA had a large part in writing the new revised HR 40. The first HR 40 is this: we need to study and determine whether or not there's continued injury. And so we knew from tremendous amount of research, the international community declared that there's continued injury. We didn't need to study whether or not there was continued injury. We need to know the extent of the injury and what type of proposals are necessary in each area of injury to eradicate it, to reverse it, to mitigate it, to clear it up, to clean it up, to repair it. And so that's where this commission is unlike any other commission. And so, yes, there's been lots of conversation around what should be the outcomes of the commission. First, in this grand scheme of our organizing, the first thing we must do is pass the legislation. That's number one. So 90% of our focus is on passing the legislation. 10% is on the commission. 90% is on passing the legislation. And as we get closer and closer to that, we can then begin to shift more and more of our attention on the commission. But we wrote the bill with a powerful commission. And as we get to this victory, the commission would be, the next work would be populating the commission and making sure the commission does what it's supposed to do. And that is create these type of proposals, what forms of reparations we would receive. And we need a lot of mental contribution, intellectual contribution, not just from one group or one particular scholar. And that's been the beauty of NCOBRA. We've always had tons of scholars vetting each other's work, vetting each other's thoughts, empowering and strengthening the work. So when we came out with statements, it was not a statement of one or two individuals. It was a statement of the collective thought of our people on a particular issue. And that is what the commission is designed to do. What is the collective thought of the Black America in the issue of criminal justice injury? Not just from the laws, our interactions with the police, but our interaction when brothers and sisters actually go to prison or whatever, making sure that there's, a legitimate reentry and all. So there's a whole range of things that must take place. And we need to bring the collective knowledge and skill of our people to address each of those areas.
And so that's even more than just a check, an individual check, right? Which obviously I think we'd agree. I mean, it's very difficult to come up with that dollar figure, but we're talking about, the white middle class, which again, folks, white middle class didn't just pop up magically.
Right.
There was an investment to make it so,
Sure.
And folks just didn't get a piece of cash. I mean, they got long-term loans and land and everything and stuff that could accrue interest. All right. Giving us a check, we go buy a car that depreciates when we drive off the lot. So it's more than just a check, isn't it? I mean, it's more of a both and conversation rather than an either or conversation, right, Kamm?
For sure, Brother Masamela. A check is great, and we all need more liquid resources, liquid assets. That's great. But, our range of attack on Black life and culture is way beyond just the financial means. We need the resources to fix things, but not the resources necessarily to go in our pocket to fix things. That's two different things. We accept and we fight for compensation because compensation is a component of reparations, but also restitution. The bulk of the redress from this government must go to making us whole as a people. Education, health, criminal justice, our peoplehood, our culture, as well as the wealth that we should have been producing that have not produced because of the impediments and crimes committed against our people.
And a check, an individual check in a dwindling American economy affected by COVID too is very different from restitution and long-term investment. In a dwindling economy, everybody's broke. That check, we gonna end up just giving it right back in a lot of senses to the economy that has already stolen from us. That's like a more modern, sophisticated form of sharecropping, if you ask me.
That's exactly right. Let me give you an example. If we got $5 trillion was given to African people in the form of a direct check, without institutions and structures, economic structures in our community, all of that's going to make its way back to white America very quickly. May take a few years, but eventually it's gonna leave our community. If you take the facts, there was a study by the Citigroup that says if America would have engaged in reparations 20 years ago, it would have added $16 trillion to the economy. 13 trillion of that would have been in the form of business revenue from Black businesses. We would have created 6 million jobs annually for Black, and those 6 million jobs annually, we know that 80% of Black businesses or 80% of employees in Black businesses are Black workers. That every 8 out of 10 employees we have, 8 of them are Black in our businesses. So that means 5 million Black jobs would have been created with these 2 million additional businesses that reparations would have provided. And so then if you give people $5 trillion in a check, that money is going to recirculate and strengthen the community even more. You don't do one before the other.
Hey peeps, it's your girl, Danielle Moody, host of Woke AF Daily. Every weekday, I'm sounding the alarm and keeping you woke to all the pure evil that is going on in our country. Check me out now at patreon.com/wokeaf. Get 5 new shows every week for just $5 a month. Get woke and stay woke as fuck.
And that's a good point. I mean, if we want the American economy or any economy to be successful, this also helps. I mean, even from an objective point of view, folks who have a problem with it ought to understand that this would be in the best interest of economy and business and everybody. So, this lifting our boat would actually, as usual, historically, lift everybody else's boat.
That's right. It would add about 0.4 of a percentage point to the GDP every year, which is 13% of the GDP, which we're 13% of the population. We increase the GDP by 13% as well. Well, we add 13% of growth to the GDP for this country as well. So lifting our boat, exactly as you stated, will lift up everyone in this nation.
You also have done some of your own research on epigenetics and its impact. Talk to us about that, if you would.
Sure. In the mental health field, there's a term called historical trauma. Historical trauma is trauma that happened to a group of people in a particular period of time, for a particular period of time. There's a start date and there's a stop date for historical trauma. Right, first off the top, that part doesn't apply to us because there's been no stop date for our historical trauma. It started in 1619 and continued. But for the purpose of scientific measurement, historical trauma usually has a start date and a stop date for a group of people. Something very, cataclysmic happened to a people in a particular time. And what historical trauma, what scientists are saying is that trauma doesn't end with the people who were impacted. It is passed down generationally, or it's passed down generationally, meaning it goes to the child. Intergenerationally means it goes then to the grandchild. And transgenerationally meaning it goes more than 3 generations down. So what science is telling us now is that the historical trauma that we've experienced is transgenerational. It goes beyond 3 generations to impact us mentally. And then that's called transgenerational transmission of trauma when it impacts us mentally. And then you have what is called transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. That means it harms us physically. So we have the mental transmission and we have the physical transmission in our genetics. And so what we find out with the transgenerational epigenetic injury, this physical component that we inherited from our ancestors' trauma, leads to an attack from the immune system, where the immune system attacks our cells. It leads to our immune system not performing the way it should and attacking things that come into our body. It leads to premature aging. It leads to us developing all these sicknesses, diabetes, heart attacks, cancers, etc., as a result of this historical trauma. And so what we're pushing now is that when you look at the COVID situation, the COVID epidemic that impacted us who had pre-existing illnesses, we said, yeah, the pre-existing illnesses is from the historical trauma, from the transgeneration epigenetic injury that we've inherited, and that all of us inherit at some point, because we don't know if it lasts 7 generations, 6 generations, 5 generations. We know in mice it lasts 7 generations, but it has never stopped. In our context, it was through enslavement, 246 years, through Jim Crow, 100 years, post Jim Crow. Even today, we're still experiencing trauma. Every time you turn on news, we've been hit with some type of traumatizing image of something happening to our babies, our young men and women, our grandparents, our elders. We're constantly being traumatized and re-traumatized by what's going on in this society.
And the proof that it's not stopped is that we go on and on without realizing it until someone like you says, you're a victim of trauma. And you stop and think, I am. I'm dealing with that. But I'm suppressing whatever it is I need to do to deal with that and get treatment for it, because we're still living in a country that oppresses us, where we have to hustle and scuffle and scrape to survive.
That's right.
And that's why this field is important too, Cam. You could address this, how this is cumulative. It didn't just begin and end with slavery. It is for the ongoing harms as well.
That's exactly right. And going back to Herschel Walker, that's a telling case of transgenerational injury, traumatic injury. He talked about twice. He talked about a grandfather being burnt alive. His mother, talked about a grandfather being burnt alive, or an ancestor being burnt alive. He also talked about an ancestor being lynched. Yet, he has no feeling of any type of rendering for those crimes committed against his family. That's traumatic. That's trauma. His mother was traumatized, even in telling him that he should not be going out to fight these people who did this to your parents. We've known in the past that our sisters saved us on the plantation. You know, when they talk about they raise women and love sons because they don't want their sons to be hurt. And so they shield them from, make them kind of passive because they know what's waiting for them. And so I think that's what happened to Herschel, and his mother telling this story. That's the type of injury that we suffer that no check can ever address.
Not only that, Cam, since you brought up that anecdote, and I'm sure you wear this too, back then, because of racism, we were trained that when we lost a loved one that way or in any kind of mysterious way, you didn't talk about it.
Don't talk
You
about it.
bring it up. It was suppressed. And he probably is not even aware of that history, that his reaction handed down was a reaction that was born out of oppression. So I think he said, his mother said, well, you can't pay the people who were killed. I said, but the reason that couldn't happen was because even when they were killed, you did not talk about it because you might be killed too.
And you wasn't going to receive any justice. So why look for justice today?
Yeah. And I got this one child of mine was killed. I can't risk getting another one killed.
That's right.
That's
the history.
Yeah, that's the history. So yeah, I guess I'm getting to the point where people like Herschel used to make me mad. But Herschel invoked a lot of tragedy in that hearing. I mean, a lot of people saw it and said, this was painful. You saw a true example. That's why I'm saying it might have helped. Because you saw a true example of someone who was literally damaged.
Exactly.
And even we don't even need to get into
passed down.
Right. And we don't even get into what he was as a man and an athlete and the commodification of black bodies to the point. They didn't give him no education at University of Georgia. That wasn't what that was. But they made millions of dollars off of it.
That's right.
And so that's important. So, folks, we're going to get ready for this. We want people to get involved. Kamm Howard, we want them to contact their members of Congress. Give people some marching orders, what they need to be doing. So
you want to go to NCOBRAonline.org. There's a tremendous amount of information that's there. You want to make yourself aware and knowledgeable to have a conversation among anyone out here is talking about reparations. You want to be knowledgeable of the facts. You want to be knowledgeable on the facts of the bill. We have an HR 40 primer on our website that lays down the rationale for changing the bill, what the bill actually does, and the full copy of the bill is in that primer. You want to go to our iMap. We have an interactive map on our website. You can click on any state. You'll see some squares. Those squares represent congresspersons in that state, in that district. You click on that square, it'll take you to their web page, their home page. You scroll down to the bottom of their page, you can find their numbers, and you can call them and tell them to sign on to HR 40. And also, you'll see squares for senators as well. They're color-coded. Blue are for Democratic, red is for Republican. We do have some districts that have large Black populations in these Republican districts, 25, 30%. You want to call those districts, tell those congresspersons also to sign on and get some bipartisan support. But the thing is, the work is not nowhere near over. There's tremendous amount of work we have to do. The hearing empowered us. The hearing may have motivated some, may have angered others to act, but action is what we have to do more of right now.
Absolutely. Kamm Howard, folks, and NCOBRAonline.org. And also, let me just say, this is an organization, and I've been saying it more and more. We need organization. We need to be a part of organization. Tweeting is not an organization, but to be a part of an organized group of people struggling and working. And history has documented our victories have come from organization, not nebulous things, not ad hoc fly-by-night hashtags. All right, I want to be clear, but has come from organization. We have a reparations bill because of an organization that has been around since 1987. So I encourage some of you to join NCOBRA. Join the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. Be a part of the movement. I would also dare say, as much respect as I have for the defund movement and the abolish movement, which I agree with, Kamm, those slogans and initiatives are defense. And when you're playing ball, you need offense and defense.
That's right.
Defund and abolish is defense. That's fine. But reparations is offense. And it's making people address the ongoing and current harms of police violence. So reparations is offense. Folks, we need to play some offense too. And I would hope that people would abide by that and join NCOBRA. This is our brother Kamm Howard. It's always a pleasure to talk to him. We'll be talking more and more. We're going to be focusing more and more on this because in 2021, we're going to get us a reparations bill. We're not going to stop until we get it. There ain't going to be no excuses. We're going to get us a reparations bill. The time is now. Kamm, we appreciate you, my brother.
Thank you, Brother Mark.
And thank you for all your hard work as well. Kamm doesn't get all the credit he deserves, and NCOBRA does not get all the credit. And NCOBRA is responsible for the 170 some odd co-sponsors we have. No other organization has done more work than NCOBRA to make that happen. So we wanted people to hear and see what NCOBRA is all about. And folks, please support them. Go to NCOBRAonline.org. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Masamela. Appreciate you.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.
Nice buns, soft, fluffy, and ultra-low net carbs. Discover Hero Bread, the delicious ultra-low net carb bread with incredible taste and texture. Hero Bread has 0 grams of sugar and is under 100 calories per serving. Plus, high in fiber with 5 to 10 grams of protein per serving. Available on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and at hero.co. That's HERO.co. Delicious, ultra-low net carb Hero Bread buns and tortillas. Soft and fluffy, high in fiber, and with 0 grams of sugar, up to 10 grams of protein, coming in at under 100 calories. Order today at hero.co and use the code AH10 to get 10% off your first purchase. That's AH10 at hero.co. HERO.co. Order from hero.co now and get 10% off your first purchase with promo code AH10. That's 10% off with code AH10. HERO.co.